Hey, what's up, Zoners? The first week of the fantasy football playoffs starts tonight. The Las Vegas Raiders are hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Do you have somebody on these teams? Well, if you do, I'm going to be doing the start sit for the Raiders, all the way from the quarterback down to the kicker and defense. Jason has the Chargers covered. Go check out that video. If that sounds interesting to you, hold on for 7 seconds. Hey, what's up, Zoners? This is Tyler, Big Turd Ward, and Banjo, the dog, coming at you live from my garage. And this is the Fantasy Red Zone. I have all my notes typed out. I'll be sharing that with you right now. All right, let's set the scene. The over and under for this game is at 33.5 points. That is god-awful, man. That was like, 29 points last Thursday Night Football game? And that was like the lowest over and under in the last 70 years. We're getting close to that, people. The Chargers are favored by 3 points, and it's in a dome, bitch, so don't worry about the weather. And let's take a look at the coverages that the Chargers defense likes to run. We will be looking, deep into this when we look at the wide receivers to start and sit. The Chargers like to run man coverage 20.7% of the time. That is 22nd in the NFL, so less than average. And then they like to run zone coverage 77.5% of the time, 11th in the NFL. So they do like to play zone more than most. And it looks like the Las Vegas Raiders have scored the third fewest points over the last 3 games. 10 points a game, dude. They just scored 0 points against my Vikings. The Chargers have allowed the 4th fewest points over the last 3 games at 14.7. So you can see why Las Vegas thinks that this is going to be a low scoring game. All right, first up, we have Aiden O'Connell, the preseason Tom Brady. He gets his chance, and he ain't no Tom Brady, okay? Let me tell you that. Quarterback 36 on the year. I'm pressing pause on this fool. 171 yards and threw 1 interception last week versus my Vikings. He has scored over 9 fantasy points only once this season, okay? That was when he scored 13 points in Week 12 versus the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? So, yeah, dude, this guy's floor is like 3 points. His ceiling is 13 points. The Las Vegas Raiders have the 18th most passing yards over the last 3 games at 204 yards per game. That is not great. And then to pair that with the Chargers giving up the 4th fewest passing yards over the last 3 games at 163 yards, man. Aiden O'Connell is set up for like 150 passing yards and maybe 1 touchdown. Davante Adams. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, next up, the running back with, I think, the easiest fantasy playoff schedule for running backs. So this guy was supposed to be winning you some championships, man. Running back 11 on the year, Josh Jacobs. I'm pressing play on this fool. 13 rushes for 34 yards. 2 receptions versus and for 16 yards versus my Vikings last week. I'm going to keep on saying my Vikings because I love their defense right now. Dude, they are killing running backs. You can't really hold that against Josh Jacobs, but he did get injured, okay? So he's questionable. Antonio Pierce, the head coach for the Raiders, drives a 6'4", says that Jacobs can play. If he can play, it will be the Josh Jacobs show. So if he is out there, dude, you are starting him. 20-plus rushes in 3 of the last 4 healthy games. Dude, 5-plus targets in 6 games this year. They actually were throwing the ball a ton to him before Antonio Pierce took over. Then he just started running the hell out of the ball. Dude, Javonte Williams had his first rushing touchdown of the year to go with 66 rushing yards versus the Chargers last week, dude. So a running back, we called for him to get a touchdown. Shout out to us, I guess, whatever. But hey, man, a running back that could not get a touchdown all year just scored against the Chargers, man. The Chargers cannot stop giving up points, kind of sometimes, to running backs. Let's see. The Chargers allowing the 6th most rushing yards over the last 3 games. 153 yards per game, dude. So they are giving up a ton of yards to running backs right now. The Las Vegas Raiders have the 3rd fewest rushing yards over the last 3 games at 71.7. They have not been running the ball well. And a lot of that is the Minnesota Vikings. So, again, do not hold that so much against Josh Jacobs. He was injured, and that defense is insane. We are pressing play on him this week. All right, next up real quick. Abdullah, I think it's Amir Abdullah and Zamir White. I'm pressing pause on these people if Josh Jacobs does play. If he does not play, I would pick up White and probably start him this week with how much Antonio Pierce likes to run the ball. And, dude, they didn't even know if they were going to be starting Aiden O'Connell. I'm not sure how much they like Aiden O'Connell anymore after last game. All right, next up, Davante Adams, wide receiver 21 on the season. I'm pressing play on this fool. 7 reception on 10 targets for a team-high 53 yards versus the Vikings. That was a tough game. Still got 10 targets. He is questionable with an illness, dude. That was just announced. I am shooting this on a Wednesday. So, dude, check your shit and make sure he is playing. Let's see. Sutton led Denver in receiving yards and had a touchdown. So you know that the number one wide receiver against the Chargers last week led in reception yards and had a touchdown. That's good news. The Chargers play zone coverage at an above average rate. They have given up an explosive play on 15.7% of coverage snaps while in zone. That's fifth worst. The Chargers have also allowed 7.13 yards per coverage snap, which is second worst. The Chargers surrendering 11.8 yards per reception while in zone. That is third worst. 27th fantasy points per route run, 0.39. And leading the team with 22.40 yards per route run, 14th, and 81.3 receiving grade, 17th. This is all Davante Adams right now. So Davante Adams is kind of just having a shitty year because of his quarterback situation. And I do want to say, though, this is the bad thing about Davante Adams. His target rate drops from 40% in man coverage to 25% in zone coverage. And then target shares, though, this is why I don't care, and I'm starting them anyways, dude. Over the last 4 weeks, 52%, 34%, 22%, 34.5%. And a lot of those teams were running heavy zone. So it does not matter, dude. You will still start this person. And here we go. He plays the left wide receiver position 53% of the time. The Chargers are allowing the 13th fewest points to that position over the last 4 games. That is not great. And he should be covered by Asante Samuel Jr. He is allowing 0.31 fantasy points per route run. That is average kind of for the league. All right, next up, Jakobi Meyers. Dude, the first half of the season, he was killing it. He needed Jimmy Garoppolo, man. Wide receiver 27. I'm pressing pause on this fool. 5 receptions on 6 targets for 25 yards last week versus Minnesota. Hey, man, I think he led the team in targets. Jerry Jeudy led the team in targets, but only had 16 receiving yards last week when Denver went against the Chargers. So the secondary wide receiver did lead the team in targets versus the Chargers last week. 6 or less fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. That sucks. Leads the Raiders wide receivers in fantasy points per route run versus zone coverage at 0.43. That is actually really good. Ranked tied for 19th in that position. Has a better target rate when facing zone compared to man. So we saw Davante Adams, his target rate lowers when it goes to zone. This guy, Jakobi Meyers, actually raises when it goes to zone. So everything is pointing good towards Jakobi Meyers. He plays the right wide receiver position 48% of the time. Dude, and the Chargers have given up the 8th most fantasy points to that position over the last 4 games. Like I said, Jakobi Meyers should have a good game, but it's Aiden O'Connell, and he just hyper-focuses on Davante Adams. That's why I don't really care. And he's covered by Leonard, and he's given up 0.41 fantasy points per route run. That is great. So Jakobi Meyers, great matchup. Just not a big enough piece of the pie for this tiny, passing game. All right, guys, real quick. Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver 108. Why am I talking about him? I don't know. I'm pressing pause on this fool. He's a slot wide receiver 89% of the time, dude. And the Chargers are giving up the 10th fewest points to the slot wide receiver over the last 4 games. He's covered by Bassey, dude. This guy is giving up 0.12 fantasy points per route run. That is insane. So you do not want anything of Hunter Renfrow, man. He has not scored over 6.5 fantasy points this season. So Hunter Renfrow, terrible ceiling, terrible matchup. Do not even play him. Next up, Michael Mayer, tight end 31 on the season, like the top tight end in the draft, I'm pretty sure. They should have got Sam Laporta. Pressing pause on this fool. 1 reception on 2 targets for 14 yards last week versus Vikings. But like I said, dude, there's just not a big enough piece of the pie in this offense for anybody but Davante Adams, man. But Adam Troutman for Denver did catch a touchdown versus the Chargers last week, so that is good news for him. The Chargers giving up the 12th most points to tight ends at 10.4 points per game. That is a positive matchup. 6 or fewer fantasy points in each of the last 3 games, dude. You just cannot trust Michael Mayer. All right, here we go, dude. We actually have a good matchup coming up. Defense, the Raiders defense number 19 on the season. I'm pressing play on these fools. Las Vegas Raiders allowing the 9th fewest points over the last 3 games. I mean, the Vikings scored 3 points, dude. So the Vikings scored the same amount of points as their hockey team that day, and they both won, dude. That's kind of crazy. At 18.0 points per game. That's not a lot. The Chargers scoring the fewest points over the last 3 games. 7.7 points per game. And now they have Easton Stick and no Keenan Allen, dude. I have Keenan Allen. I've got Justin Jefferson. I was the top seed in my league, dude. Where's the bleach? Somebody stab me in my eyes, man. I put my fingers into my eyes. All right, guys, last thing to cover is the kicker, even though we could just forget about this, man. We could just forget about this. Daniel Carlson, Kicker number 26. I'm pressing pause on this fool. 12 fantasy points combined over the last 3 weeks. What is that? That's like 4 points per game over the last 3 weeks. We don't want none of that, do we, Taz? Nope. Lowest over and under for the week. We want high over and unders. We want high scoring games. Dude, go pick up Haversk or whatever, dude, the LA Rams kicker. Do that instead of Carlson, man. Anything but Carlson. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I earned a thumbs up. Hopefully I earned a subscription. If you are not already subscribed, man, we need your help. We need your help to take the show to a whole nother level, man. Help us allocate some more resources towards this show. Hey, this is Tyler, Big Turd Ward, and I appreciate you.